The Antimicrobials in Society Project Uganda is a 4-year social science research project that started in 2017 and will be ending in 2021. In this research project, we are trying to understand the roles and context of antibiotic use in everyday life in 3 settings, one being an urban setting in an informal settlement in Kampala, a rural setting, which is Tororo, Nagongera sub-county, where we are focusing on rural households, and a peri-urban setting in Wakiso, where we are focusing on poultry and piggery farmers.
So this is a drug bag. I would like you to look at this pile of antibiotics.
To understand antibiotic use in these 3 locations, we started by using the medicines bag method. And this simply meant we visited the sources of medicines in these 3 locations first, bought the commonly demanded samples of antibiotics, assembled these in a bag, one for human treatment and one for animal treatment. And we started off by conducting medicine interviews with household members and farmers, and we presented them with these different antibiotic bags and engaged them in a process of sorting medicines according to what they recognized, what they frequently used, what they needed but could not get, and what they thought worked and what didn't work. We also had discussions about where they obtained these medicines from. This was followed by a period of spending an extended period of time in each of these locations with the aim of understanding everyday life from the perspectives of these people and farmers, and also understanding how then antibiotics fit in everyday life.
Our facing challenges of poverty. Getting food is very difficult for the whole community, including me myself, plus my home people. No money even to buy medicine if someone is sick. The land is not fertile, which makes us not to have enough food in our household.
Of course, the biggest problem we have is diseases. Because one time I lost like 7,000 birds. It's a period of around 1 year. Each bird, it gives you an egg every day. And at the end of the season, you sell each bird at 20,000. So 17 is around 40 million. I mean 14 million. Yeah. When you sell all of the birds, you have already lost 14 million. There's a time I lost 100 pigs. That is around 13 million or so because of those diseases that attack the farm. I was almost giving up. But of course, when I realized that it is an infection and biosecurity is very important on the farm, then I had to come back.
After my interaction with Pasco, I have realized that this business cannot do without antibiotics. I am interestingly privileged to observe how they will be mixing an antibiotic in a water tank that supplies directly to poultry drinkers.
Every beginning of the month, there is some antibiotics we put in water. Every end of the month, there is some antibiotics we use by the help of the doctors.
We also engage participants in discussions about our initial findings periodically so that we could get them to give us input early in the process of the research about how we were interpreting what we were observing.
That's how I started.
Can you tell me more about the problem of diarrhea in this community?
What makes us to diarrheate? Because of stagnant water. Because for us in this zone, we don't have even a borehole. We just use well water. And within that well water, animals also take water from there, where the community people also take water. We just use their stagnant water, and the water is not clean.
Oluzzi lwaffe luno amazzi gaali gajja bulungi nnyo naye emidumu gyatuusa ekiseera ne gizibikira. Emidumu gino esatu kati tulina omudumu gumu abantu gwe bakozesa. Ogwokubiri guleeta obuzi butono, guno ogwokusatu gwo tegukyaleetera ddala. Abantu babonaabona okima amazzi n'ekiseera kituuka ng'enkuba etonnya ennyingi n'ebeera ng'amazzi gajja nga ga brown.
We constructed here a latrine, it collapsed. Again we constructed here, it collapsed. Again there, it collapsed. Again that end, it collapsed. Then again we dig another pit. There is also not yet completed.
So what happens now that there's no toilet, latrine in this home? What do you do? How do you manage?
We just move deep in the bushes there, down.
As we heard earlier, diarrhea is rampant in this area. And one of the causes of this is believed to be the open defecation that's happening because someone can't put up a permanent latrine in the area.
Naye kati abo batasobola kusasula bo bakola batya?
Abatasobola kusasula waliwo bajja ne beewura. Bamu ne bansasula abalala ne bagana kunsasula kubwaza kusasula. Abalala balimu bakaba mubera ne basula eri mu myara.
Like Innocent has mentioned, one of the challenges here is the informal toileting that comes up when people are unable to afford the toilet facilities. And so obviously the infection rate is very high. People often have diseases like diarrhea. Like we found out when we did our survey initially, diarrhea was one of the most common illnesses here. And this is really evidenced by the toilet facilities that are in the places that are not even enough for the people, and yet they have to pay for them.
We visited libraries, we've been to the Uganda National Archives to try and collect data on the history of antibiotic use, recognizing that this is important in terms of contextualizing everything we are learning through our research. We've talked to different stakeholders in the National Drug Authority, the Ministry of Health, Ministry of Agriculture, among others, still discussing issues around antibiotic use, our policies on antibiotic use and the history of antibiotic use. And this is how we've come to learn about antibiotic use in everyday life and in Uganda in general.
So what we have seen here today in Kanyoga sort of represents the daily life of somebody living in Namungo. The scarcity of toilets, and yet it has to be paid for. People cannot afford it all the time. Besides, even if they could, the toilets are closed off at a certain time and opened at a certain time. So informal toileting is inevitable. People are going to use polythene bags, use the drainage, and even with the Nashivubo channel, with the backflow of the water when it rains, ending up in people's houses means there's a lot of infection going on. And even with the contamination with the water, still there's a lot of infection. So antibiotics have become a part of everyday life here. It's inevitable to use them because of the situation in which they live. They just can't afford to not have them. They have them stored in their houses, they keep buying them for whatever infection they get. So it has just become inevitable that they continue to use antibiotics just to cope with the situation in which they live.
So in this community where people are living in scarcity, antibiotics have become part and parcel of everyday life, enabling people to live with frequent episodes of diarrhea and offering relief such that people can continue being productive with their garden work despite being unwell.
This research shows that antibiotic use is never a pure medical decision. From this farm, we see that antibiotics are connected to economic concerns regarding productivity, profitability, and protection of farm investments.
So having visited our 3 study sites and learnt about the challenges and issues that people are grappling with in their everyday life, it's clear that targeting structural issues driving antibiotic use in everyday life is crucial. As an example, I'll talk about the rural and the urban site in Kampala, where people are grappling with water contamination and limited access to clean water causing frequent episodes of diarrhea. In these two settings, one can see that investing in an effective and safe water system might be more practical than simply asking people to stop using antibiotics or to stop taking incomplete doses of antibiotics. When we look at the commercial farm we visited in Wakiso, we understood from the farmer there that there was a lot of investment in that business, heavy financial investment. In that setting, we learned that antibiotics were not only protecting investments and livelihoods, but also infection. In such a setting, it might be more practical to provide people with safety nets, such as insurance schemes, rather than simply ask them to stop the routine use of antibiotics.